Thank you guys for tuning in to San Diego Market Movers Question of the Week. I have Quynh Vu in the hot seat today.
Hi.
Hello. I want to talk about the short-term rental agreements that we are going to be having in place soon. It's the new regulation that San Diego is going to be putting in place. Mm-hmm. Do you think these new short-term rental regulations are good or bad for the San Diego real estate?
I think that's a really good question. Right now, the short-term rental regulations have been very loose over the last few years, and there's been a lot of concerns from people that maybe a neighbor of someone living near a short-term rental, but there's also a lot of benefits too of having short-term rentals. So sometimes you go on a vacation, you may want to stay in an Airbnb, and you may have visited one in San Diego, but starting this fall, there's going to be new rules in place that's really going to limit the number of Airbnbs that are located outside of the Mission Beach area by the coast. And I think, to be honest, looking at those regulations as it gets closer to September or fall, once they're fully released, I think would be the best thing for us to do. Right now, there's different tiers that you could be in, tier 1, 2, 3, or 4, which really depends on what type of a host you are. Are you living at the property? Are you not living at the property? Are you renting it out 20 days more or 20 days less? So I think that learning more about those rules as they come out is good, but they are going to be limiting the number of licenses that they do pass out to like 1% of all the rentals. But right now, if you do have a short-term rental and you're interested in learning more, some of the things that you can do is you can apply for a transient occupancy tax certificate as well as a rental business unit certificate. Those are some things that you can do in preparation of preparing for a license. But if this ordinance goes into place and people are no longer able to rent out their Airbnb, there's other options too. Things that they can do is they can do like a 30-day minimum stay. Mm-hmm. So, they're still providing a furnished housing, which can be used by military personnel who may be here in San Diego for a limited amount of time and they don't want to sign a long lease. It can also be used for healthcare workers. There's a lot of traveling nurses that come from other big cities to work in San Diego to help with the shortage of staffing. And some of these Airbnbs are being used for that purpose. So I think that the ordinance, there's some pros and cons with it, but there are some options if you cannot get a short-term rental license where you can still rent out your property for additional revenue without impacting potentially the neighbors as much.
Okay, so it's not a good or bad thing. I think that we can work around it. And like you said, you can still do your 30-day short-term rental. So I don't think it's going to steer people away from buying homes as an investment property.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I think that there's still a lot of options for investment in San Diego, regardless of whether or not those rules are in place.
Okay, well, thank you so much for answering my question in the hot seat.
Thank you.
Anytime, and joining me at San Diego Market Movers Question of the Week.